So, Brandy, welcome, and could you please start by telling us a little bit about yourself and, of course, Lowell Transportation?
Sure. I am a mother. My husband and I had lived in Niagara Region, Ontario for his whole life, and for me about 15 years. And I, at the time when we were starting up Loyal Transportation, was a struggling mom of many. And I had difficulty finding work that could provide for many kids, and I had difficulty finding transportation in our area. So we actually had found that there were illegal underground cabs growing so that the community could support the community because there wasn't a lot of access. And actually, we had started by working for one of those companies, and then kind of got the idea that we could do it better and that we could. I'm big on reading the law, and I figured out a way to talk to the police about the bylaw and changing things so that small businesses could operate and do essentially what everybody was creating on their own underground.
Okay, you've mentioned family company, right? And many kids. So, who else is helping?
Well, my husband is a great spokesperson, and he was the original driver along with his brother, David. So what would happen is that they would go out and they would be the drivers, and he would promote, like, do you know that Loyal exists and that we were licensed to operate and so on. We also have my son Logan. He is our accountant. He does handle a lot of the paperwork when it comes to tax time or whenever we have to do, cash out crediting, anything like that. My daughter, Sky, the oldest, she had been a driver. She was one of the youngest drivers to be a TNC license in Niagara. And she also had answered the dispatch phone for a while. And now in Florida, she works for a different part of advertising, and she's going to be our gopher in Florida when we open operations here.
Oh, so
I
that's the
My
plan?
other daughter also works for Loyal. She handles the paperwork that handles Niagara Region has a lot of requirements, so she
Mhm.
has to respond back and forth there. But we've really like kind of suckered in anybody in the family and friends and said like, this is a great mission. Help the community, help us, help them, and got everybody involved really.
Cool. Thank you so much. Let's zoom in a little bit and just talk a little bit about the local insight. So, Brandy, back to you. You've mentioned that one of the reasons you wanted to start your own business was the legality issues, and that there were a lot of people and a lot of other companies who were, kind of doing it outside the, let's say, legal aspect. Were there any
Yeah.
other sort of things that were missing in this local community that made you, come up with the ideal of the loyal transportation?
Well, it was dangerous, as a previously single mother before I had met my now husband. I had to take these illicit speedies because I couldn't afford an Uber. I couldn't afford taxi. I, for whatever circumstances had befalled me, didn't have a car, and I had two little kids. So, we would take chances and we would call these people, which was just essentially a phone number that would send somebody in the community to pick you up at your personal home address. And because they weren't vetted, and because anybody could get a job by saying, I need a job, and now their number is getting distributed your address, it was extremely dangerous. I got in a lot of dangerous circumstances that was simply because I was poor. Because I didn't have access and because there wasn't any answers. So for me, it was like I wanted to have an answer to this speedy problem that we are just going to have to use this. The transit didn't make it to Bartlett Street and Thorold South. Thorold
Oh,
South was cut off from all of the other cities. I couldn't get food in Thorold South. I needed to go traveling on a road with no sidewalks through a tunnel for miles with little children or get a speedy cab. So, I mean, it wasn't that the options were there for people like me. These were the options for everyone. And that's why people were making this illicit underground speedy, is that they were solving the problem for themselves that the people that be and where our taxes go had not resolved it, not with transit or anything, for a long period of time. I'm talking Speedy right now still operates in Niagara, Ontario, Canada, even while legal ones exist. And it's been in operation for 30 years.
oh
30.
wow.
So there was a problem long before I came along. I just thought I could do it better. I saw that there was an idea here. It seemed like they were just missing a piece, which might be somebody very annoying and controlling, going into meetings and saying, sitting in and learning and going, you know what, I have something to say at the next meeting. And I did. And it made a
Wow.
difference. They were looking for a way to combat Uber anyways. The police that were handling licensing were having fights with taxi all the time, and they didn't want Uber there. And so I came in like, well, hold on. What if we're like a more respectful Uber? Like we won't go do the things that were upsetting them. And they were mad that it was like unlimited licenses when they have to pay for their license, which is valid. So we said we'd have a cap on it, on how many companies or how many drivers, and we wouldn't flood the market. So, mutual respect would have solved it, but nobody came to the table to have a solution. Everybody just yelled at each other for years.
Okay, but since we're already mentioning Uber, of course, it's a clear line of thinking that since there's so many already big players like Uber, Lyft, and others, what helps you stand out?
Oh, that's easy. Honestly, Uber just is a machine. It's an uncaring machine. Somebody reports you've done something wrong. You even have dash cam. Doesn't matter. You're out of work until our computers look into it and our computers find you did nothing wrong or you did. And then you suffer an impartial consequence or, they're not listening. It's an uncaring machine. And so we pride ourselves on being involved. I sit and we do interviews for 2 hours and training because I want to know that I can sit in the room with somebody you've got to sit in the car with. And we do a little bit more, and that in touch, that connection, the community that we serve respects that. They know what they're getting if they call Uber. There might be somebody there quicker and they might be, more of them on the road, but you get a lot of care and compassion. If you had left your phone in our vehicle and you don't have the money for a return, I pay for the returns just to make sure they get their stuff back. We don't want to be a company that doesn't help. We call the police have a lot of problems in Niagara with missing people. And it seems crazy that we have access to so much information and can't assist. So from the beginning, we have been called by police and we give as much information as possible. And that's something Uber doesn't do. They just don't care. It's a big conglomerate that opens up in a new area without thought, floods the market before they're even legal. And it's just allowed because they're filling everybody's pockets, or not, because I hear arguments in the meetings that I sit in that they're not even paying for 6 months. But if I'm a day late, I get told, pay up, player. So I just wonder if it's fair.
Okay, that's actually some of the aspects that I've never heard anyone share this the community thing and sharing and becoming like let's say a safe haven for
Yes.
basically the community again. Wow, okay.
Hmm.
I was even making some notes because these are the things that I really would like to think about. By the way, talking about what was before the technology, Brandy, how did you handle taking bookings and coordinate it with drivers back then?
Yeah, it was actually a crazy system. Again, I was trying to mimic what was the illegal speedy kind of system, but do it better. So my idea was they're getting a phone call in. There's a number you can always call, and I had my specific, drivers that were mostly family for the beginning. I would answer the phone. I would save their name as their name or their address so I knew where they were going every time they'd call. I had a recorder on the phone, so if I missed something, I could act confident on the phone and then listen to the recording to get the information out to make it quick because I knew eventually we'd have a quicker system where people are calling in and I'm on the phone and I've got to click another person's calling in and then I would send a message to the driver of what address they had to go to and they would tell me the ETA and I would go to the passenger number and remember which one is for that and say ETA, the driver is, I'd say their name and their car, and that they'd be there in that many minutes. The driver would send me a text saying here. So I'd say to that passenger here. So I was literally this middleman phone person, and they would get out and they would get in the car, and the driver would tell me clear when they had dropped off a passenger. And that meant they were open on my list of who I could give a call. Now, I wasn't very good at where everybody was located when they would just up and tell me their address. And I had this dream I would have a map and I'd put a clear thing on it. I'd put little dots and like erase it. I did not work like slow enough for me to be able to do that. But essentially, I had this dream that I would really get this system going, and I was the best because nobody could do it. I got pregnant and I needed to have somebody get hired to do my job at least some days, at least for the Labor Day. And I tried and went through like three different girls. We had a binder. She would do a few hours because nobody could handle all day like me. And they'd give the binder of all the calls they'd had to remember. And it was a whole thing. I worked real hard. And on Labor Day, the girl came running back. I can't do it. And gave me the phone back. And I had no choice but to answer the phone. It was a trip, but I answered every single phone call from 7 in the morning until 12 o'clock on weekdays and 2 a.m. on weekends. And I would take Sunday off sometimes, but if the phone would go off because we have no transit, I'd work and answer it and do that too. So it was me, 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 and more me for a long
Okay,
time.
girl, you changed the definition of multitasking and bringing up to the whole new level with that, you know?
It's crazy.
Okay.
Nobody can do what I can do. And I mean, I don't think I could jump back and be as awesome as I used to be because I'm out of practice, but I could do it again if I had to.
Okay, but okay, with all that, I'm sure you, and yes, well, okay, I still need to process that because even listening to that made me a little bit tired already. I have no idea how you managed to handle it, but at which point you actually realized that all these manual operations were just not sustainable anymore? And what was that final moment when you said, okay, let's do something differently?
I had gotten too many calls that I couldn't handle it anymore, and a new city. So we started in St. Catharines. Niagara Falls and Welland were begging for me. So I was taking those calls in different cities and managing people and drivers, having a list of what drivers situated in what city. That's when it was too much. So I had an idea. I'd just hire a dispatch like I tried before and train them like I tried before, but give them a new number for like Niagara Falls can call that lady and it'll be slow and she could learn just like I did and she could do my job. So that didn't work out. And I just was freaking out. I had missed, 2 years of having any kind of vacation with my kids. I hadn't visited Florida, my family. I
Mhm.
would be at grocery stores answering phone calls, pushing kids in the snow, answering phone calls. Felt like I couldn't even look in my kid's face or sing them, lullabies without answering a phone. I mean, I was done. I was having like a breakdown midsummer. That summer, I said, we have to figure something out. We have to build an app, start looking up if we could get a loan for something because I was being told it's like $30,000 and it's just us running this operation and it's just getting a little out of hand. I can't keep
Mhm.
doing it. Like I'm doing such a good job. Everyone's calling me and I have like 25 drivers that I go like this and manage. Crazy. So it was enough. That summer I said, you're gonna have to figure something out because I can't do this anymore.
Wow. Yeah, okay, you still are my absolute personal hero hearing all these stories. But okay, and since Onde is actually the company that pays my covers my paychecks, I do have to ask, like what made you choose Onde as your technology provider?
Well, actually, we were driving some college students, and at first we had hired them to make an app. And they did, and it was great. But when we tried to make it live, they couldn't figure out servers and having a live server. So I would have just made my own app if it was possible, but it was so darn hard. Well, another college student had heard while using Loyal, hey, I heard that you're looking for an app, and his name is Kevin James. And he said, that he worked with what was called Taxi Startup and that he wanted to be like our manager and he would help us out and he got us onto the app and everything like that. So I wouldn't have trusted it if it wasn't like a real life person sitting in front of me saying like, you've got nothing else. You want to give this a shot? And I didn't have to pay $30,000 up front. I was like, oh, of course, I would love to try anything. I might die if this doesn't work out. And it was hard. My drivers, some of them were like 65, not willing to get a new cell phone that was, those kind of phones. They still had the flip phone. And I had one guy that would smash the phone in the driveway because it kept ringing, which were calls he was supposed to accept. But It was, and I was live. I was live handling these calls and putting them in the app and training people while still running the company. So it was a stressful time period, the transition, but it was worth it. It was worth it to do it. And I was lucky to, I guess we communicate well. We make a lot of connections being in this business, friendly. Somebody said, hey, I heard. And because of that, I found you guys. And I believed it because somebody really in person said, try.
But yes, this is the challenge. So we all are now living sort of in a digital world, but we still, you know, thrive for the true live human connection.
Authenticity.
Yes, exactly.
Hmm.
And juggling that, being available worldwide makes you want to go and makes you need to go digital, but creating that connection is something that well, I personally like, and to and keep saying to my team that, okay, guys, this is actually, we talk with real people. Forget about most of those scripts, they don't sound like a robot. Talk to real
Distraction
people because they have real stories to tell, and we can make
really works.
and help them, yes, like do something that they were not able to do before us. So it's
Mhm.
incredible, and thank you so much for choosing us in that aspect, that we can get connected to the incredible story that you are now sort of writing with every day that you in the business.
That's it.
Thank you. Does that resonate with you? Do you have maybe mentors or associations, communities that you rely on, that you're part of or would like to become one?
Well, there's a lot of things that are similar that we do that don't have any good big titles, and we're not doing it en masse, right? Because it sounds like Dan handles a lot more than we do. We're a very small region, and as long as we're on top of the region, there is somebody that makes sure to pay attention and represents us. If I don't want something to happen, like they're changing the fees or they're demanding something I can't comply with, so we need to fight our reasoning before it's law, and now we have to deal with it. I have people in place to do the same kind of thing. Even working with other businesses, there was a time when other companies were getting overwhelmed with calls, but they knew we could handle it. And we were their competition, but they wanted to look like they could handle the calls by sending their people a car, but it'd be a loyal. It was completely against like the typical. However, there became a need where, they would be willing to work with a competitor just so that they could provide good service. So we were almost like, you're respecting that I provide good service. So the same kind of thing has happened where we tried to conjoin with other great businesses. I think that communication and working together is the key. That was my whole pinnacle argument about the taxi, is the taxi was rightfully upset at Uber, and it was unfair. And we can't solve that because Uber's already here with money. So what can we do? We can run them out of town because I run a better of what they're doing than they did. And that actually did occur in our area. The Toronto is where the hub is to hire onto Uber. And it used to be in Niagara region, but there weren't enough applying drivers to have everybody come to the region, that they've moved the hub to Toronto. And that was around the time when we were like maybe year one, year two. And we weren't doing anything spectacular other than caring. We actually answered it. We had the same people stay for a long time. And I think that's the other big benefit, is like, I don't discard people when they have a problem. We'll do dash cams, but they are private contractors for Loyal. We do not have employees. So since all of the work is on you, all of the risk is on you, I will additionally help you get customers. I will additionally support and manage so that the company itself looks great. But my operators are in complete responsibility for whatever it is that we have to comply with. You need a TNC license. You got to come in for a safety every 6 months because your kilometers are immense. Whatever it is that they demand of us, you must comply with. And my job is just to make sure that you keep complying. And I work with, we have Merrittville Speedway. We do all kinds of sponsorships. We've gone on 97.7 and made, ads for advertising, but we also support like Grape and Wine. So when small community events happen and everybody gets together and travels from Niagara on the Lake all the way to Port Colborne, we've got our drivers aware in advance. We are going to be busy and you're going to be handling a lot of people going to this event, and I want you to be on top of it. We monitor in the same aspect where we really love that if a driver says that they were there on time, I could look very quickly and say, you might have swiped to arrive, but I see that you're on Ferry Street and that's not the pickup address. So, no, you weren't on time. And then we can hold them accountable, which helps them do better in the future. And unlike Uber, I didn't just cancel their app because they lied to me. I help them understand that we can monitor. I help them understand that if you need and somebody's saying something's happening, we have the right to listen to the customer and you have the right to record. So where's your dash cam if you didn't do these things? The taxi is sounding, or the system that Dan provides sounds like they're a little more on top of it with their information, which is good. But for me, I find the only time the information is valuable is when it is causing an issue and I have to respond, because otherwise everything seems to be going well. And I'm very vocally like in presence, where if you wanted to complain to the owner, you can send your complaints. People Google review, they are happy to tell you what sucks. So if it sucks, I know about it. And if it does, then I have a job to do to find out who's telling the truth. And the machine definitely, it assists. It assists both that I can listen to both parties. I can see what actually happened on paper, so to speak, but it's a computer. But, I can see the facts in front of me. And it's really assisted us having these systems. I think I would love to do more of, those meetings again, like when I was in person in Niagara. My representatives are just one person and not an entire bunch of people. I have a small group of managers that are respected people that I ask advice, even though I kind of know where I'm going. I want to hear you say that that's a good idea because, maybe I'm wrong and you're really physically there. Maybe something's changed that I've missed. I like to be involved so that I know what you know by listening as well. But the groups and the systems, it sounds very complex but usable. I mean, what we can do when I ask David to check over everybody's their ignored rate. Like you already have an algorithm that's changing whether they get more or less if they have a bad ignore rate. But I kind of want to know why you're on the app ignoring calls. So me having a system that shows me that month, the 10 worst, I can have a conversation with their performance and why are you like, what is the reason you'll be online, see a need while you're at work and then just ignore it and let it pass you by? This is
Mhm.
excessive. So I like having the systems to be able to do that. And yeah, maybe some more formative groups would be better for us, but we're small. So I feel like we slowly learn by hearing, oh, that's a good idea. I should probably be doing that.